Can a creative person make money? Can you really build a life on the back of your talents? Or is that all just social media fiction invented by people trying to sell you dreams? Many of us dream of being successful musicians, writers, filmmakers, and artists. But parents, friends, strangers on the street, they'll all tell you it's near impossible to be successful as a creative. Lots of creative people are famously successful, but there are thousands more treading water, struggling to stay afloat. Why are so many creatives broke? Is it the fate of all people with creative genius to struggle to pay the bills? Is turning passion into income anything more than a pipe dream? I know a thing or two about taking a gamble on creativity. I quit my job in TV journalism to go out on my own and create documentary films. It was just something I felt compelled to do, as do most creative people. So, can a creative person make money? Well, it's complicated. Very complicated. Trying to resist your creative instincts can be like holding your breath. Being a creatively inclined person, someone driven more by imagination than anything else, felt like something I had no control over. I just had to do as my soul told me to. While it's important to feed your soul, it's also important to feed your body. Take care of yourself. Creative principles are great and everything, but they aren't very filling. Even though I created documentary films, deep down, I'm a writer. I just feel like I have to reflect the world the way I see it. What I discovered early on is that the world outside of my creative process, also known as reality, can be very hostile to imagination. Turning what goes on in here into money, well, that can be incredibly difficult. As a creative person, I realized that my talent and my abilities are just a fraction of everything I need to be successful. If you aren't prepared to accept that, well then prepare to starve. History is filled with creative geniuses dying in poverty. Some of the most imaginative minds that gave us enduring, incredible works and changed the way we look at our world, they died with nothing but shrapnel in their pockets. Being broke is like a perfectly natural state of being for some creative people. It's just something they come to accept. To be the starving artist is like a rite of passage. Many creative people all over the world struggle from one month to the next because earning a consistent living from creative output isn't always the easiest thing to do. Of course, being successful as a creative isn't impossible. If it were, we wouldn't be having this conversation. What I've learned is talent is almost never enough, and sometimes holding on to your creative mindset, being inflexible in how you pursue your passion, it is the very thing that can kill it for good. All of a sudden, it regains prominence. Yeah. It was nearly 20 years before I decided to go after my dreams of making documentary films. While my job as a TV journalist wasn't your typical office gig, it wasn't as formal as the standard corporate environment. There were rules about how to do things, how I could express myself. I probably waited for as long as I did to make my move because I didn't really want to leave behind the safety of a regular paycheck, even though it wasn't that much to begin with. But it was certainly better than not knowing where the next one was coming from. When you're chasing your passions in the beginning, which can last for years, you can be as broke as a pigeon in a park trying to get paid for your passion. Without money coming in regularly, everything can fall apart spectacularly. Some creative people don't like to talk about money. That's contaminating the process. Back in the day, I didn't want to think too much about money because I thought I was answering a higher calling, which is some pompous shit now that I think about it.
I remember telling loads of people, none of whom asked me by the way, that the most important thing to me is my legacy, the impact of my work on other people. So you can imagine my surprise when I discovered that the credit card companies didn't care about my legacy. The grocery stores, they weren't interested in the impact of my work on other people. Who knew?
It's easy to wrap yourself up in the nobility of following your passion, to massage the urge to be different and stand out from the crowd. But when your stomach starts to fold in on itself from hunger, that nobility isn't worth the price of admission.
If you're relying on other people to pay you for your creative work, well, that can be tricky because non-creative people, the folks with the money, some cases the corporate types, well, they might have a different way of assigning value to creative work. Can they see the value in a luxury vehicle? Oh yeah. But assigning value to your creative work? So to get around that, you need to establish the value of your work. You need to be more than a creative person.
The good news is, in today's tech-driven world with social media opportunities, it's more possible now for creative types to earn a decent living on their own terms. The digital economy has totally changed the game, giving creatives not just a platform to show people what they can do, but to build viable businesses and connect directly with audiences who will pay for their work, cutting out the middleman. To be successful as a creative, you need to think like a creative entrepreneur. This helps you see your art as a business. A money mentality will help you use your talents to generate income, which will allow you to keep creating. Thinking of yourself as a creative entrepreneur will balance the creative and the practical, the business side of things. That creates financial security.
I had to strike the right balance between the creative side and the business side of my persona. That's how you build financial security. So I kept creating, writing, I continued to learn about filming and editing, color grading, all of that great stuff. But I always kept my eyes open for any financial opportunities that would allow me to keep doing the creative stuff.
Years ago, when I started making television documentaries, I saw myself as a TV producer and a filmmaker, not a creative entrepreneur. All I focused on was creativity. Big mistake.
The folks I had to sell my ideas and my work to, well, they weren't interested in any of that. They were just looking for the best place to put their advertising dollars. They were in the business of selling products and making money. So I had to understand their world so I could figure out the best way to show them how valuable my work was to them. I didn't like it because that's not who I am, but I had to learn the ropes to stay off the ropes, to keep making documentaries.
You see, after a few years of struggle and finally accepting there's no nobility in being broke, that money isn't the enemy, I completely reframed the way I thought about being a creative. I became more strategic and business-oriented.
Books, music, art, films, these all enrich our lives. But money, though, that's what makes all these layers to life possible.
Stumped about how to make money as a creative? Here's a tip: don't resent the work that pays the bills. As creatives, many opportunities come knocking that don't take the shape of our creative passions. Jobs that pay, but they aren't our passion.
When I was doing documentaries, cash flow was always a headache. These advertisers had their peculiar billing cycles and lengthy approval processes. Everything moved like mud. It took forever to get paid. But during this period, I was getting a lot of calls from companies who wanted something different. They wanted corporate videos. Now, me being a purist and a bit stupid, I didn't want to do that. I thought of corporate video like prostitution, so I turned them down. But here's the thing. These companies, there was a product that they wanted and they were prepared to pay for it, and on time.
I already knew how to do that kind of work, so I eventually swallowed my pride and my bile, and I took every corporate gig I could.
I dropped my inflexibility about the corporate video work, and then I started throwing all of my creative energy and my inspiration at it in the same way that I did my documentaries. I mean, I held my nose at first, but then that mindset shift changed everything.
She looks at the lovely ring.
In my bones, in my creative DNA, I'm a writer and a documentary filmmaker. For lots of different reasons, I just couldn't generate sustainable income doing that kind of work.
But to keep the lights on, I had to dabble in corporate video work because that's where the demand was. Now, in the beginning, I resented that corporate work because even though I could put my own creative spin on those projects, it wasn't where my heart was. It's not what I would choose to be doing if it were up to me. But that stinking thinking made me miserable.
I was looking at it all wrong. I had to stop hating on the work that allowed me to live to fight another day as a documentary filmmaker.
Take it from me, don't feel bad or get stressed out about having to do work that's not your art. Often the work that pays the bills, even though it's not your passion, well, it will keep a roof over your head until you can get your passion to pay.
A single income stream as a creative person is planned failure. Depending on income solely from one creative source is short-sighted. You may not always be able to sell enough books, paintings, freelance articles, or music every month to support yourself. That's why it's good to have several irons in the fire.
When I was creating the documentaries, I was approached by a newspaper to write a newspaper column, a weekly column. That's not something I ever thought about, but then that became an extra income stream.
Then I went from documentary work to online courses, books, and video marketing guides. All of these income branches came from a single seed: video. Maybe you can provide a service using your creative talent: video production, illustrations, ghostwriting, jingles.
It's useful to expand your revenue earnings horizons, to set up different ways to earn a living. Sit down and think about different ways that you can create products or services that people will pay for.
If you want to ditch the starving artist life, then you better get good at marketing. Video is one of the most powerful forms of marketing today. Stop me if you've heard this one before. If a beautiful painting falls in the forest, does anyone give a shit?
I don't think I'm remembering that saying correctly, but this is what I'm getting at. You could be the most gifted artist in the world, the most talented author, but if no one has ever heard of you or your work, then none of that matters. You're just another tree falling in the forest that no one hears.
There's a kind of snobbery among creative people. Some think marketing is beneath them. Others complain that creating content for social media takes away from their time and focus on their creative work.
No one will pay for work they don't know about. Audiences can't support creative people, fashion designers, painters, writers. They can't support these people if they haven't connected with them, and marketing helps you make those all-important connections. And there is no creative expression without the audience, the people to receive your work. Otherwise, you're just creating in a vacuum. Because in the beginning, I wasn't exactly crazy about learning how to market my creative work. What I was essentially saying is that I didn't value my creative output. I mean, that's what it meant. I wasn't committed enough to learning the marketing that would get it in front of audiences. That's what it took. So eventually I realized that I had to put as much energy and investment into learning marketing techniques as I did in writing, shooting, and editing.
We need readers to buy books, music lovers to buy music, art lovers to buy art. That's how art is sustainable.
How important is confidence?
Marketing is how I got my work in front of audiences who would value it by paying for it. Marketing is just as important as the expression of creativity. Each is meaningless without the other. And there's another key step to that marketing process. You're not nearly as special as you think you are. Sure, you can write, sing, dance and all this, but the world is filled with talented people. To succeed as a creative, you need to build a personal brand. I'm good at what I do, writing and making videos and documentary films, but there are people who are as good as or even better than I am. But they aren't me though.
Okay, I'm a video guy. You would expect me to say flattering things about the format. But in this case, it's true. Video is one of the most powerful ways to build a personal brand online. When audiences see and hear you, they feel like they get to know you on a personal level, that they will connect with you as opposed to others with similar talents in your field. Creative entrepreneurship can be incredibly competitive, but there's one deciding factor that can give you an edge over other people, and that deciding factor is you. So it just makes sense to take advantage of that.
I can no longer imagine being so fulfilled by my creative work that I'd get used to being broke. And there's no reason to be. It's entirely possible to support yourself with your creative abilities.
Everything I've said here, I have lived and I have done. So these are insights and experiences that I've brought straight from the battlefield. So yes, a creative person can make money. You may have to learn a few things that are as boring as a lecture on sedimentary rock, but then that's life. You take the exciting with the mundane.
There are few things more rewarding than being able to express yourself creatively, with the exception of, that is, creating a good life doing it.
Are you earning a living as an author or a painter or a fashion designer? Are you making money as a creative person? Are your passions paying the bills? Let's talk about it in the comments below.